The massive command center aboard the Federation flagship hummed with desperate energy as hundreds of alien beings worked frantically at their stations. Red warning lights flashed across the walls, and the air filled with the sounds of different species communicating in their native languages, crystalline chimes, insect-like clicks, and electronic pulses that translated into words of fear and confusion. Admiral Veltash stood at the center of it all, his body made entirely of living crystal that sparkled under the emergency lighting. His kind, the Crystallians, had ruled space for over 1,000 years using their advanced technology and perfect logical thinking. But today logic was failing them. "Another system has fallen," reported Commander Thix, a tall insect-like creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the red warning lights. "The Devourers destroyed the Kala system in less than 6 hours. That makes 23 systems lost this month." Veltash's crystal body dimmed with sadness. The Devourers had returned after sleeping for thousands of years, and they were more dangerous than ever before. These ancient enemies looked like massive, living ships that could change their shape and learn from every battle. Every time the Federation tried a new weapon or strategy, the Devourers would adapt and become stronger. "How many ships have we lost today?" Veltash asked, though he did not want to hear the answer. 612 warships, sir. The Devourers seem to know what we will do before we do it. They counter our energy weapons, jam our computers, and their ships learn from each fight. The Federation represented the best of galactic civilization. The Crystallians could manipulate energy with their minds. The Nexari shared a group consciousness that let thousands of beings think as one. The Luminants were made of pure energy and could travel at the speed of light. Together, they had created a perfect society based on logic, order, advanced science. But none of it mattered against an enemy that grew stronger with each battle. "What about the hive mind attacks?" Veltash asked, referring to the Nexari's ability to attack with coordinated mental power. "The Devourers have learned to block our shared thoughts. The Luminant energy beings report the same problem with their plasma attacks. Every advantage we have, they find a way to stop it." Veltash felt something he had never experienced before: complete helplessness. His species had solved every problem through careful analysis and superior technology. They built perfect battle plans using computers that could think faster than any living being. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their shields could stop any known attack. Yet they were losing badly to an enemy that seemed to grow smarter with each encounter. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Zeph from across the room, "we are getting responses to our emergency calls for help." "Tell me the good news," Veltash said, hoping someone in the galaxy had found a solution. "Most are refusing to help. The Valorian Confederacy says they need their ships to protect their own worlds. The Silicon Collective is evacuating their home planets. The Quantum Empire has gone completely silent." Veltash's light grew even dimmer. If the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were giving up, what hope was left? "But there is one strange response," Zeph continued. "A species called humans from a planet named Earth. They want to send someone to talk to us. Humans." Veltash had never heard of them. "What do our records say about this species?" "They are listed as primitive, sir. Carbon-based life forms with short lifespans and no space travel technology. Our last survey was done 50 years ago, and they had not even achieved nuclear fusion power yet. What could such a primitive species possibly offer us?" "Unknown, sir, but they seem very eager to help. The message said they have experience with impossible situations." Veltash considered this carefully. His perfect logical mind told him that a primitive species could not help where advanced civilizations had failed. But with billions of lives at stake and no other options remaining, perhaps it was time to try something different. "Send them our location," he decided. "If they wish to help, we will listen to what they have to say, sir. Are you certain? They do not even have faster than light travel. They claim to have it now. Besides, what do we have left to lose?" As the message went out to the distant planet Earth, none of the beings aboard the Federation flagship could have imagined that their salvation would come from a species they had dismissed as unimportant. They could not have known that sometimes the most complex problems required the simplest solutions, or that the greatest strength could come from those who had learned to survive. Against impossible odds, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were failing because they approached every problem with perfect logic and predictable methods. But somewhere in a distant corner of space, there existed a species that had learned to succeed by embracing chaos, taking crazy risks, and never giving up even when victory seemed impossible. The Devourers had conquered 17 galaxies by learning to counter every logical strategy and advanced technology they encountered, but they had never faced an enemy that did not rely on logic or advanced technology to win their battles. They had never faced humanity. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of Earth's first real spaceship, the Soul's Pride, watching through the main window as the enormous alien space station grew bigger and bigger. The ship looked like it had been built from spare parts, which it had. Human engineers had taken pieces of crashed alien ships, mixed them with their own technology, and somehow made it all work together. "I still can't believe we're doing this," said Chief Engineer Biorum from her seat at the control panel. 6 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're flying to meet the leaders of an entire galaxy. And we're going there to offer help in a war, added Navigator Sujin, shaking her head in amazement. A war against enemies that have destroyed civilizations more advanced than anything we can imagine. Ginho nodded, but kept his eyes on the growing space station. When Earth had received the desperate message from the Galactic Federation, every nation on the planet had agreed immediately. Humanity would help however they could. But now, seeing the massive alien structures ahead of them, he wondered if they had been too eager to volunteer. "Incoming message from the station," announced Communications Officer Donghuan. "They're asking for our identification papers, and they're apologizing for taking so long to see us. Something about needing to prepare special rooms for beings like us to breathe in." The bridge crew looked at each other with raised eyebrows. It was becoming clear that these advanced aliens had no idea what to expect from humans. 2 hours later, Jinho found himself standing in a huge chamber surrounded by the strangest beings he had ever imagined. Admiral Veltash looked like a giant living diamond that spoke by making musical sounds. Commander Thix resembled a huge praying mantis with extra arms. Across the room, a creature made of pure light kept flickering like a broken television as it tried to hold a solid shape. Captain Jinho, Admiral Veltash's voice, came through a translation device. "We thank your species for wanting to help us in our time of great need. But we must ask, what exactly can Earth contribute to this war?" Jinho had practiced his answer many times during the long journey, but facing these incredible alien beings, his words felt small and unimportant. "Admiral, we bring what humans have always brought to difficult situations: determination, the ability to adapt quickly, and a willingness to try things that others think are impossible." The light being flickered faster, which the translator said meant laughter. "Captain, please understand we face an enemy that has conquered entire galaxies. They have technology that learns to defeat our most powerful weapons. Our quantum computers are useless against them. What could a species that barely has space travel possibly do to help?" "Maybe that's exactly what you need," Jinho replied. "You've been fighting them with advanced technology and logical plans. What if the answer isn't more complicated? What if it's simpler?" Commander Thix's many eyes focused on Jinho with obvious doubt. "Captain, the Devourers have eliminated 17 different galactic civilizations. Each one had technology far beyond what your planet currently possesses. If advanced solutions have failed, why would primitive ones work?" Jinho smiled, which was an expression that confused most of the aliens present. "Because sometimes, Admiral, the best way to solve a difficult problem is to approach it from a direction no one expects. My people have a saying: if you can't break down the wall, find a way around it. If you can't go around it, dig under it. If you can't dig under it, blow a hole through it and deal with the mess later." The chamber became quiet as the various alien species processed this through their translation systems. Finally, Admiral Veltash spoke again. "Captain Jinho, I must be honest with you. Your species lacks the technological abilities we normally associate with military strength. You cannot manipulate energy with your minds. You have no quantum computers. And you cannot share thoughts like a group mind. Your ships are ... basic compared to our standards." "All of that is true," Jinho agreed. "But we do have something different. We have 5 billion people who have spent their entire history learning how to survive when everything goes wrong. We've fought wars, natural disasters, and our own limitations for thousands of years. Maybe what you need isn't better technology. Maybe you need someone stubborn to admit defeat. Admiral Veltash's crystal body pulsed with different colors as he thought about this. Around him, the other alien representatives began communicating in their own languages, flashing lights, musical tones, and electromagnetic signals that showed intense discussion. After several minutes, the Admiral spoke again. "Captain, we are desperate. Our fleets are being destroyed. Our worlds are being consumed. If your species believes it can help our defense, we will accept your offer. However, I must warn you, this enemy has destroyed civilizations far more advanced than Earth. We cannot promise that you will survive." Jinho's smile grew wider. "Admiral, promises are overrated. Sometimes the best victories come from the fights that everyone tells you are impossible to win." As they signed the formal agreements, and Earth's small fleet was assigned to join the war, none of the alien representatives could have predicted that their salvation would come not from superior technology or perfect planning, but from a species that had learned to turn the impossible into routine. The first battle began at exactly 3:47 in the morning, ship time, and within minutes it became clear that this fight would be different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Lieutenant Commander Haywon watched from the bridge of the Busan fighter. As the enemy ships appeared out of nowhere, huge, dark vessels that looked like they were alive, constantly changing shape as they moved. The Federation's Third Fleet immediately formed their perfect battle lines, just like they had been trained to do for centuries. Federation ships are setting up their energy shields and moving into standard defensive positions, reported Officer Youngman from his station. "They want us to take our place at the back of the formation." Haywon studied the battle display on her screen, watching the enemy ships approach. She had read all the reports from previous battles. Every fight followed the same pattern. The Federation forces would start strong with their advanced weapons and perfect formations. But then the enemy would quickly learn to counter every move, and the Federation fleet would be destroyed. "No," she said firmly, "we're not going to the back. Signal all human ships we're doing Plan Chaos." Around her, the bridge crew smiled. Plan Chaos was something they had invented during training, organized confusion that had made their alien instructors very frustrated and worried. "Okay, ma'am, the Federation is asking what our battle plan is," Communications Officer Jun-Sik reported, trying not to laugh. "Tell them we're making it up as we go," Haywon replied, "and suggest they might. Want to stay flexible?" The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions like scared fish, with individual ships heading toward the enemy from completely unexpected angles. The Busan fighter dove underneath the main battle to attack what looked like an enemy supply ship. The Inchin hammer started flying straight at the largest enemy vessel, as if it planned to crash into it. The Daegu Thunder began shooting at everything within range while spinning and dodging in ways that should have been impossible. "The Federation fleet looks confused," Youngman reported. "They're asking us to get back in formation." "What about the enemy? They're not adapting like usual, ma'am. Their ships keep trying to figure out what we're doing, but we don't seem to be following any pattern they can understand." Haywon watched the battle display with growing excitement. The enemy ships, which had smoothly countered every Federation tactic in previous battles, were struggling to respond to the humans' chaotic approach. Every time an enemy ship began to adapt to one human attack, that human ship would suddenly start doing something completely different. "Wasa, fighter. This is Admiral Veltash, on the Eternal Harmony." The crystal being's voice came through the communication system. "Your current fighting method appears to break every known rule of space combat. Please explain what you are doing." Haywon pressed the communication button. "Admiral, we don't know what we're doing. That's the whole point. Do not understand this concept. Sir, you've been fighting these things with logic, patterns, and predictable moves. They've learned to counter all of that. But you can't counter something that doesn't make sense." On the main screen, the Inchin hammer completed its seemingly suicidal charge toward the enemy ship, but at the last second, it turned away and fired all its missiles at close range into the enemy's engines. The alien vessel, which had been preparing for a collision, was hit by the missiles without any defense because it hadn't expected the sudden change in tactics. "The enemy ships are breaking their formation," Young Min announced with excitement in his voice. "They're trying to retreat." Across the battlefield, the Federation forces watched in amazement as the enemy that had systematically destroyed their fleets began to run away. The humans' unpredictable, seemingly random attacks had accomplished what the galaxy's most advanced military minds could not. Busan, fighter, Admiral Veltash's voice carried a tone of wonder. "How did you know this method would work?" Heywan grinned at the screen. "We didn't know, sir. That's what made it work. My grandfather used to say, if you don't know what you're doing, your enemy doesn't know either. Sometimes the best plan is to not have a plan." But the battle wasn't over yet. The largest enemy ship, a massive vessel that looked like a living mountain, suddenly stopped retreating and began to glow with a strange purple light. "Ma'am," Young Min said urgently, "the big one is doing something. It's scanning our ships and it's learning our chaos patterns." Heywan realized the danger immediately. If the enemy could learn to predict their randomness, they would lose. Their only advantage? All ships, this is B-Song Fighter. She broadcast on all frequencies. New order, stop being random and start being creative. Don't just do unexpected things, do impossible things. Make them think we're completely insane. What happened next would be remembered in military history as the moment when organized chaos became an art form. Human ships began performing maneuvers that violated physics, using their weapons in ways they were never designed for, and coordinating attacks that looked like accidents but were actually brilliant tactics. The great enemy ship, trying to analyze and counter the human approach, suddenly began to malfunction. Its systems, designed to adapt to logical patterns, couldn't handle the humans' creative insanity. With a sound like breaking glass that somehow traveled through space, the massive vessel exploded as the remaining enemy ships fled into hyperspace. The Federation began to understand that their primitive allies were not primitive at all. They had something the galaxy's advanced civilizations had forgotten: the ability to win through pure, calculated madness. 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler Defense Line, Admiral Veltash found himself doing something he had never done before: asking a primitive species for military advice. The Federation's most powerful computers had spent days studying how humans fought, and the results confused every advanced mind in the galaxy. "Captain Jinho," Veltash began, his crystal body flickering with confusion, "our computers have analyzed your species' military history. Your wars appear to be solved through what our systems call organized madness. How do you maintain any control over your forces?" Jinho, now promoted to Fleet Admiral of the Combined Federation Human Forces, smiled calmly. "Admiral, let me introduce you to Sergeant Major Woojin. He's our expert on ground combat." The old Korean soldier stepped forward, his simple uniform looking plain next to the shining Federation officers around him. "Pleased to meet you, Admiral. The captain asked me to explain how human military thinking works." "Please continue, Sergeant." Major Woojin pointed to a holographic display showing different battle formations. "You see, Admiral, most alien species fight like they're playing chess. Every piece has a specific job, moves in predictable ways, follows strict rules. But humans, we fight like we're playing poker. I do not understand this comparison. Poker is a game where the cards you get don't matter as much as how you play them. You bluff, you read your opponent, you take risks, and sometimes you bet everything on a hand that looks terrible but might actually win. The important thing is that your opponent never knows what you're really thinking." Admiral Veltash processed this through his quantum brain. But this approach seems to depend on randomness. How do you coordinate large military operations without predictable patterns? "That's where you're wrong, sir," interrupted Commander So Young, the human fleet's planning officer. "We're not random, we're adaptable. Every human soldier learns to think for themselves while working toward the same goal." When Lieutenant Commander Heywan broke formation at Kepler, she wasn't being random. She was responding to what was actually happening, making decisions that no computer could predict because she was using instinct, experience, and creativity. "But how do you maintain unit cooperation?" Woojin laughed. "Admiral, let me tell you. About the Battle of Busan during our Korean War. My grandfather was there. The city was surrounded, supplies were cut off, and communication with headquarters was broken. According to all logical analysis, the defense should have failed completely. Instead, individual units started making their own decisions, working together through hand signals and improvised coordination, adapting to new problems every minute. The attacking force, which had planned for normal resistance, couldn't handle thousands of independent decisions being made at the same time. What was the result? Jinho continued. A complete reversal of what should have been certain defeat. The attackers retreated because they couldn't predict or counter an enemy. That was basically creating their strategy as the battle progressed. Admiral Veltash's optical sensors focused on the humans with new interest. Are you saying that your species' apparent lack of strategic order is actually a strength? Not lack of order, Soyoung corrected. Flexible order. Every human unit can work independently, but we're all trying to achieve the same objective. When one method fails, we try another. When the enemy learns our tactics, we've already moved on to something completely different. This is disturbing. To our understanding of military efficiency, that's exactly why it works against the Devourers, Jinho explained. They've conquered galaxy after galaxy by analyzing and countering logical, predictable strategies. But they can't counter something that's constantly changing, because they're trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing its shape, Commander. Thix, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. But surely this approach has weaknesses. How do you plan long-term military campaigns? Sergeant Major Wu Jin grinned. Shh. Sir, humans have been planning long-term campaigns for thousands of years. We just don't plan them the way you'd expect. We set goals, prepare for multiple possibilities, and then change our methods based on what actually happens rather than what we thought would happen. Show him the Normandy example, Jinho suggested. Soyoung activated another holographic display. Admiral. This shows one of our species' most famous military operations from our Second World War. The original plan was completely ruined within hours of starting. Whether problems, enemy responses, equipment failures, everything went wrong. By normal analysis, it should have been a complete disaster. And the outcome? Total success. Because every unit, from individual soldiers to army commanders, adapted to changing conditions. When the plan failed, thousands of humans simultaneously began creating new plans. The enemy couldn't respond because there was no longer a single strategy to counter. There were thousands of small strategies all working toward the same goal. Admiral Veltash's crystal structure pulsed slowly as he thought about this information. You are suggesting that your species' greatest military strength is your ability to succeed when your plans fail? No, sir, Wu Jin corrected with a smile. Our greatest strength is that we expect our plans to fail. We make sure we can succeed anyway. For the first time since the Devourers had returned, Admiral Veltash felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. Perhaps the galaxy's salvation would come not from superior technology or perfect logic, but from a species that had learned to turn failure itself into victory. The war was far from over. But now they had something new. An enemy the Devourers had never encountered before. The final battle for the galaxy began at the Nexus Point, where 3 giant stars created a natural gateway through space. If the Devourers captured this position, they would have direct access to all the core worlds of the Federation. Here, the largest fleet in galactic history would make its last stand against an enemy that had never been defeated. Fleet Admiral Jinho stood on the bridge of the New Sol, humanity's newest and largest warship, watching as ships from across the galaxy assembled around him. Federation vessels stretched across the star system in perfect formations, crystal ships that sparkled like diamonds, biomechanical constructs that looked half alive, and energy ships that flickered like ghosts. At the center of it all, the small human fleet prepared for what many believed would be their final battle. Enemy ships coming out of hyperspace, announced Sensor Operator Myung. Devourer mothership confirmed. Admiral, it's enormous. 50 kilometers long, looks completely organic, and it has over 3,000 escort ships with it, signaled the fleet, Jinho commanded. All Federation units use Formation 7. Human units, Pattern Omega. and remind our allies that no matter what happens next, they need to trust us completely. Across the combined fleet, the carefully planned chaos began. Federation ships maintained their precise formations but stayed ready to adapt at any moment. Human vessels scattered like startled birds, each ship heading in what appeared to be a random direction with no clear pattern. Admiral Communications Officer Hyansu reported, "We're getting confused messages from 20 different Federation commanders. They want to know what our battle plan is." "Tell them the plan is that we don't have a plan," Jinho replied, his eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. "And that's exactly what's going to save us all." The Devourer mothership was unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. As it approached, smaller ships separated from its hull, like insects leaving a nest. Each one changed its shape to counter the specific types of ships it detected. The creature had learned from every previous battle, absorbing the knowledge of 17 conquered galaxies into its strategy. "They're targeting our command ships first," reported Tactical Officer Sangman. "Same pattern as before. They'll try to destroy our leadership, then systematically eliminate our heavy weapons." "Not today," Ginho muttered. "Signal the fleet. Operation Confusion. Execute now." Across the battlefield, the human fleet began its most daring move yet. Every ship started broadcasting false command signals while doing completely different things. The Bazan's Revenge appeared to retreat, while actually moving into position for a surprise attack. The Dagu's Gambit sent surrender messages while charging its weapons. The Inchin's Defiance broadcast retreat orders while leading a direct assault on the mothership's guards. "Federation ships are adapting well," Myung reported. "They're following our lead, keeping their formations while doing individual tactical variations." The Devourer fleet responded exactly as expected, trying to analyze and counter the human tactics. But for every pattern their systems identified, 10 more appeared. The humans weren't just using unpredictable tactics, they were actively creating false patterns to confuse the enemy's learning systems. "The mothership is having trouble processing our approach," Sangman announced with growing excitement. "Its escort ships keep changing configuration, but they can't decide on counter tactics, because we keep changing what we're doing." Admiral Veltash's voice came through the communication system from his command ship. "Admiral Ginho, the Devourers appear to be malfunctioning. Their response patterns are becoming increasingly random. That's the point, Admiral. They're designed to adapt to logical opposition, but we're not being logical. We're being human." The battle reached its peak when the Devourer mothership, overwhelmed by contradictory information, began to show signs of system failure. Its adaptive systems, faced with thousands of different tactical variations happening at once, began to cancel each other out. Escort ships started attacking each other as their identification systems became confused by the humans' electronic warfare. "Now," Ginho commanded, "all units, focus everything on the mothership's central core. Not its weapons, not its shields. Aim for whatever looks most important, and hope we get lucky." The combined fleet unleashed everything they had: Federation energy weapons, human missiles, and dozens of other attack types, all converged on the massive enemy vessel. But the killing blow came from an unexpected source: Sergeant Major Wu Jin. Commanding a small assault ship, had used the chaos to slip close to the mothership's hull. "This is for every world you've destroyed," his voice crackled through the communication system as he detonated his ship's entire weapon supply directly against the mothership's central brain. The explosion was brilliant and brief. The mothership, its adaptive systems already overloaded, couldn't compensate for the destruction of its central intelligence. Like a building collapsing, the entire vessel began to fold in on itself. "Enemy fleet is withdrawing," Myung reported in amazement. "All Devourer ships are retreating into hyperspace. They're running away." The aftermath was almost quiet after the chaos of battle. The most feared enemy in galactic history, the terror that had consumed 17 civilizations, had been defeated. Not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by a species that had learned to turn chaos itself into a weapon. Admiral Jinho, Admiral Veltash's voice carried deep respect. "How did you know this would work?" Jinho smiled as he watched the last enemy ship disappear. "We didn't know, Admiral. It's what made it work. Sometimes the best way to win is to be too unpredictable to lose." The galaxy was saved, and humanity had earned its place among the stars.